Coming to you from the city of the weird. Exploring topics from the esoteric and unexplored to dimensions unknown. Shining a light of truth on the darkest corners of our reality. Welcome to the Curious Realm. Well, hello everybody. Welcome. We'll be right with you, Facebook fans. I guarantee you. We had a little bit of a button juggle there at the beginning, and things went haywire, all that kind of good stuff. So we will be right with you, Facebook. But I assure you, we are there tonight. We are here for you live tonight. Great episode. We have with us pinch hitting tonight our good friend Mike Turber. In the first segment, we will be talking with Mike Turber of 5x5 News about the latest in the Chinese spy balloon epic that is going on. Like, I swear somebody's going to make like the slowest new balloon movie ever. You know, it'll be like, it'll be the new red balloon. The red balloon with a yellow star on it, you know, floating across America instead of the French red balloon film that I grew up with. That's what we should do, Mike. We'll be talking with Mike Turber about that and the supposed attack that took place last week, and even the outage right now with Meta, things like that, how those things relate, if they relate. In the second part, we will be joined by local NLP practitioner and doctor, Dr. Cecilia Cervantes is on the show in the second part, talking about neurolinguistic programming and the idea of basically getting rid of negative self-talk, being able to not necessarily hypnotize yourself, but to get your brain used to thinking in a different form and fashion than you might be used to it. So, and how that can help your life, how that can help you move forward, get past traumas, how that can help you process the world of the paranormal that happens to you. As a matter of fact, I will be taking a 5-hour-long NLP session with the good doctor coming up this Sunday. So that will be interesting. I cannot wait to see what comes about of it. We may be recording part of that and airing it for you if things are not too personal. I know in the past we've aired my past life regression that was done by our good friend Terry Lovelace, things like that. So we will be recording that session this upcoming Sunday and possibly airing some of it. We will see. Right now, coming to us from the not too distant future, our good friend Mike Turber. How you doing, buddy? Oh, where is he? There he is. Here, but yeah. There he is.
Hey,
hey, how you doing, buddy?
Doing excellent. How are you?
That was classy. It's almost like we planned it, just like we practiced.
I think we brought that up earlier. Yeah, no, we didn't. We didn't do it. We would never do that.
Yeah, what's that about? Being cheesy? Yeah, this is my favorite one right here, though. It's because it's all about perspective. And that is really a great example, actually, Mike, of the.
I mean, that's a classic right there. I mean, everyone
it is. No, that's straight 7th grade shop class for me. Like the pictures that we took of like giant skateboards, you know, things like that. But that really is exactly what's going on with this Chinese balloon thing. You know, is the fact of there is just something else massively going on that is being twisted around and used in a different way. And I think that it has fed into a lot of people's panic. So let's start getting into some of the new developments with the balloon fiasco, so to speak, Mike.
Here's what I've found out so far. Basically, it's mostly what's in the news, but there's some other stuff that's going to be coming out here in the next 24 to 48 hours. The balloon, what they call it, the FBI calls it debris. They will not say the word balloon. Put whatever you want on that spin. But yeah, that's what they're calling it. So the FBI is calling it debris. The fishermen, it was a commercial fisherman commercial fishing craft that apparently ran across this balloon that was in the water. It wasn't flying around or anything like that. They found it in the water. And what that makes me think it is if you remember the show we did, I think it was episode 67 or something like that, where I had discussed another balloon. There was a third balloon at the time that no one knew about. And this is a balloon that we, I think we had a phone call that came in. And when I had over captured some chatter, I'm trying to word this properly so I don't actually reveal the communication method that I was using. We're not allowed to talk about methods and tactics. So the communication device that I was utilizing at the time allowed me to hear the communications that was going on between some offshore aircraft and vessels that told me that essentially 1 hour and 38 minutes after the balloon was shot down in the Carolinas a year ago, almost, I don't know what day it was. We're pretty close to right at a year with that.
Close to it.
The balloon that was over the northern Pacific. It was about 1,200 miles north of Hawaii and a little bit towards the east. And that balloon was put down, I believe, and I still believe to this day, that China downed their own balloon. They basically just sent a kill command to it. And they didn't want to have any more negative impacts. Because if you remember at the time, Blinken was going to China and he canceled the trip and all this other weird stuff came up about that. But that balloon apparently went into the water. And not one mainstream media outlet picked up on that. And I think the only people that knew about it was myself and about 6 others.
Yep.
And we were all kind of asked to not say anything, but I'd already mentioned it on your show, so I don't care about re-mentioning it now. But yeah, that happened. That balloon hit the water, and the balloon was not the same size as the other balloon, which was the cargo, and the other balloon was about the size of three school buses or city buses. And so this balloon, I believe, may be the balloon that the fishermen grabbed out of the water, because if you follow the currents in that area, the currents go around the Hawaiian Islands and then go up, just kind of like the Gulf Stream does in the Atlantic Ocean. We have a similar current over there where it goes up, picks up some stuff around Hawaii, and then deposits it over in the Aleutian Island area. And so I believe the possibility exists that this balloon may actually be that balloon. And if we find out that that was a balloon, and it was the balloon that may have went down, this time last year, and they just happened to find it, you'll be the only person that ever reported it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Well, and I remember that conversation because I remember a colonel coming on, and there's not often that I edit things, Mike. But during our pre-record of that, I went through and actively, scrambled the colonel's name, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was a colonel. Was it a colonel that popped through? We were doing the pre-record, and you got a phone call, and it just ended up
losing the connection. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but somehow the connection is coming in and going out.
Oh yeah,
possibly another ex-son.
Yeah. Well, and
son
it was interesting to.
This is with my finger around my nose.
Well, if we need to, Mike, we can go to straight phone call, something like that. That's not an issue at all, bud.
Those are still connected.
If
you can hear me, I can't hear you.
Huh. That's strange. Weird stuff with Mike Turber. Imagine that. And, you know, we'll try to reconnect with Mike here because this is our live segment. And it's funny to me with all of the things that have come out in the news about the Chinese spy balloons, about the spy balloons floating over the Midwest, spy balloons being shot down with missiles, a missile just like missing a spy balloon and going into other locations, you know, going into a lake. There has been a whole entire, oh, there he is. Hey, he's back. All right. Back from the future. Welcome back, Mike. We were talking about the wild chain of events with these Chinese spy balloons, everything from the first one that was shot down to the second one that was shot at and missed the first time and had a missile go into a lake, one that was downed over Canada, and it's interesting how most of these are floating around from right there near Russian waters, things like that. We regularly have incursions with Russia. You know, I mean, you see reports about it like, oh my God, Russian fighter jets. It's like, yeah, they have the same reports over in Russia about, oh my God, American fighter jets. Like we are constantly pushing each other's airspace, things like that over there. So the fact that balloons come over from that area,
the funny thing is, I don't think people realize exactly how popular balloons are. You know, if you go into the UFO community, you'll find that everybody jumps on debunkers because we say that everything is a balloon, but they don't realize how many balloons are in the air at any given time. I mean, there's 900 locations around the world that launch weather balloons twice a day. So that's 1,800 weather balloons that are put in the air each day just from the 900 locations that report them. So that's a lot of balloons. And then on top of that, you've got other scientific packages that float on balloons for months at a time. We're not talking about your balloon that goes up, does a weather thing, does the sounding for weather balloons, and they normally go for about 2.5, maybe 3 hours. They get upper level winds, upper level readings on the sun and all kinds of different stuff. So there's a lot more going on with balloons than people realize. So at any given time during the day, you're going to have hundreds of these things in the air. There's your standard weather balloon right there.
Yeah, that expands to about 25 feet.
Yep. Yeah, when they launch, they're about 6.5 to 9 feet in diameter. When they launch, you can actually, that girl in the middle there, that's a good representation. So they're about 6 feet when they launch. I've launched maybe 50 or so, you know, not that many, but enough to where I put cameras on them. I put a cell phone on one and lost the cell phone. The first time I put a cell phone on one, I lose it. But, you know, these things are very popular. Then you have multiple types of balloons. So you have balloons that are, you know, that carries basically full satellite type packages. And that Chinese balloon that came over the United States last year, that had the full on the everything package. I mean, it had Wi-Fi communications, and it was actually, I don't know if this, I believe it's been reported, but it was utilizing Wi-Fi communications.
Oh, yeah. It was actually, it was reported the fact that they were actively using a U.S. internet provider to communicate, you know?
That's correct.
And that's just it. It's the fact of, and granted, This is where that connection comes in with the things that just happened last week, Mike. And do not get me wrong, people. Yes, everything being made in Huawei, stuff like that, definitely sets up the fact for a data backdoor to be able to happen. into chips, into control processors, into all kinds of things. But brother, I heard people literally on my job site like, you need to get out of here early today and you need to go empty your bank account. Because it's coming. Yeah. It's here. And that was within hours. That was within hours of there being an outage reported. And I was like, I'm connected with a couple people. If this was the case, I would be hearing from them.
Yeah.
Even if it was via other means, via something else, because of a cell phone outage, guaranteed you would have a means by which to get in touch with me like you do. My other security professionals would have means by which to do that. And just about guaranteed one of my RSS feeds, be it DHS, NHS, CIA, FBI, like I follow all of their news feeds. So somebody would have a red flag up somewhere. Unconfirmed cyber attack being investigated, something.
The intelligence agencies would probably be one of the last to actually report it because they're under the gun so much for reporting things too soon or reporting things at all. So normally that's going to come through the White House. That's going to do it. It's going to come through a civilian agency. CIA is a civilian agency. So it would come through there before it would come through anything that's under the DOD umbrella. So you won't hear anything from NRO, NGA. You're not going to hear anything from NSA, anything like that. Even DNI, you won't hear from them either. And they run everything. But in general, there really shouldn't be a fear factor involved in some of this, especially when these outages happen. If this connection goes again, I'm going to move where I'm at right now because for some reason I don't know why I'm getting a poor connection. I don't have any bars on my screen right now for some reason. But anyway,
because we're talking about them.
That's probably trying to jam the communications. I got to go out and look and see if there's a black van outside.
Right.
Just weird because they switched to white now.
You don't have a Wi-Fi signal that says FBI surveillance van in your neighborhood, do you?
Guilty as charged. If I did a screenshot right now, you'll see that my actual local thing is actually that.
Yeah.
I think I changed it to the Polk County. I'm here in Polk County where the famous Sheriff Grady Judd is.
One of my favorites was a show lead that I used to travel with. His personal cell phone Wi-Fi was called Hide Your Kids, Hide Your Wi-Fi.
Hide Your Kids.
That's classy. That's a deep social cut right there. But in all sincerity, getting to the outages, because there was just one today on Meta, things like that. A lot of people, I do not think, realize, Mike, how connected all these services and servers are. You know?
Well, the way it is the way the system is set up is, first off, 96 to 98% of all the communications on the planet are done through cables. So and that's all your international traffic and stuff like that. When you get into the domestic infrastructure, you get into, how many people that are watching this actually have a home landline anymore? I mean, very few. So you're relying on communications that are done through lines, then are put into cell towers and then transmitted out. But you are utilizing a device that 100% works on a 0.3 watt to maximum of, maybe a watt or so, but normally it's around 0.3 watts of a cell phone that's communicating with the tower, and you got to be within X number of feet of it. All the electronics that are utilized in some of these things are very susceptible to any type of solar attack. Here we go again.
Sure. Well, and that is, and of course there are numerous news articles saying that, of course, that was not the main cause of the outage. Things like that. 100%.
I'm
not
moving
saying
this
it
Can
was.
you see me now?
But absolutely. But also not saying that it was a hack or that it was a backdoor from anything. We have regular server outages. We have outages that happen all kinds of ways that if that if you have a problem, be it with a server, something like that, that there are backup servers that roll into service, that kind of stuff. Sometimes it can take a while for everything to port over to get moving, everything else. But, it just has not been released yet. Anybody that it is an attack. And by now, we definitely would have heard something. We definitely would have heard some kind of scuttlebutt coming down the pipes that there was a supposed attack, something along those lines. So let's see. I think that we lost Mike there again. Wow, we've never had this connection problem with Mike. Strange. On hold. Let's give it a shot again. So yeah, it's one of those, like we enjoy doing on this show, like this show is really all about. It's about the demystification of things and trying to understand things in a deeper connection, in a deeper way. And to look at something like what happened last week as just prima facie what it is, a service outage. General service outage on three services really, because Cricket was involved in there, which is Verizon. A lot of these services share towers, share servers, share data pipelines, all kinds of things. So to think that it is just the one thing or just the one side of it is, well, in and of itself myopic. And we're gonna try and get a hold of Mike here via different means. Unless Mike's there. Are you there, Mike?
I think I am.
Oh, there he is. Hot diggity.
I'm trying to turn this camera back on here and see if
That's
I can get
okay.
this to function properly.
That's all right. So yeah, I don't know if you heard everything that I was saying there. I had your channel mute while I was dialing you, so it didn't bing and bong, all that kind of stuff. But we were basically talking about how numerous companies share pipelines, numerous companies share towers, they share communication satellites, things like that. So a general outage can be spread in such a way without it being a backdoor, without it being a hack, without anything nefarious in that kind of way happening. It happened all of a year or so ago that there was a major outage with Facebook. These things
we just had one today.
Yeah, exactly. All these things tend to live on the same servers. They live on the same pipelines and in the same data centers. So, an outage on one can trickle to another because of that.
Well, it really is a trickle down effect, and that's what kind of happens in these outages. One thing trips another. It's just like with power. When you trip a transformer, that means the power has to be rerouted another way, and then that might trip another transformer, and then you have this cascade effect, and that's actually what they call it, is a cascade.
Yeah.
And so that's when you get into the realm of who's protecting their equipment better than the next guy. So when you have companies like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, or some of these big companies go down, then you look at, okay, which company actually was down, and then you look at AT&T, which is the oldest of them all, of all of the Bell companies. Obviously, AT&T is American Telephone and Telegraph. That's what that stands for. Yeah. And that's where you start to question, okay, you've got a really good, reliable network, and AT&T does have a reliable network, but it's nothing like Verizon's network, which is definitely the best of the bunch. Apparently I thought T-Mobile rode most of the backbone of AT&T, but T-Mobile has rebuilt their own network. Of course, they had the fake 5G for the longest time, but they were virtually unaffected. And so that's where you come in to start playing around and looking at these systems the way they have them all set up. I'm going to try to get this phone where it's actually more steady because I had to walk down to the other end of the building. But yeah, so that's, you start to wonder what the infrastructure is on some of these companies, and keep in mind how many services rely on these companies. We're talking about emergency services, 911 services. We're talking about a lot of the backline services that the hospitals use actually run on the backbone here.
Yep.
And they use cellular type equipment. So that becomes a problem, a big problem.
Oh no, precisely. It becomes a huge problem. And I was one of those people that was unaffected by the outage. I found out about it whenever my contractors, I was like, I'm getting a few failed messages that I wasn't getting yesterday. That kind of stuff. And as it came in, as people rolled in, like the first 3 or 4 people, like, hey man, I don't know what's going on, but my cell phone's in SOS mode.
Right.
And then the VP of the company that I was working with came in and was like, major outage on Verizon. Like, I've got like Verizon and AT&T. I have absolutely nothing. But his coworker with the same company had no problem whatsoever. I had no problem.
There were people that were in the same house on the same plan.
Yeah.
And that was your indicator right there as to what caused this, because it wasn't a hack.
Yeah.
If it was a hack,
it would have been a total system outage.
It would have been a total system outage. Everything would be gone in whatever node that they were bouncing around in. If I'm hacking into a place, I'm going to hack in through a node. And once I get into that node, I'm going to try to get to some main switch somewhere and then take down that switch. If I can't take down the switch, I'll take down the node. And that means it'll be just like Orlando. Or today, like I did with Facebook, I took down all of Facebook, all of Instagram, all of Threads, and all of, Meta, the whole Meta thing. I took it down today just for fun. But no, that wasn't me. But somebody out there is going to go, but Mike Turber said, and then I'll see these guys in black coats come up here and grab me here in a minute. But and the suspects at the time, I mean, they were talking cyber attacks. They were talking internal espionage. They were talking all kinds of different stuff. And the very first thing I looked at was the outage map. And as soon as I looked at the outage map, I went, wow, we were attacked. We were attacked by the sun. That's who attacked us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I'm a much bigger proponent of the Occam's razor situation. Was it something that it was the total cause of it? Absolutely not. But was it something that caused a cascade effect within old defunct systems that hadn't been replaced or updated, things like that? Sure.
It was a combination of so many different things. But the key factor that tells you what it was some systems were affected, some were not.
weren't.
Now, some of those had to do with maybe security updates, like somebody updated their phone, someone else didn't. And a lot of that has to do with how fast your phone reacts to them kicking it back on. Sorry about this walking around stuff.
It's okay,
hard
bud.
for me just standing. But when you look at all the factors that are played into how the cell phone companies work, this will all change, by the way, because we're going to go into a system that over the next 5 years is going to be much more similar to the GSM systems that are used around the world. And that will probably alleviate a lot of this, because most of the problems that we have here, they don't have in other countries.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So you don't hear about a lot of this in other countries. And it's weird that we invented the telephone, we invented the cell phone, we invented all this stuff, yet we always seem to be the ones lagging behind the rest of the world when it comes down to it. If anyone on this watching this has ever traveled to another country, you probably noticed that your cell phone worked incredibly well outside of the country.
Yeah.
And here you've got to go, like I'm doing right now. I'm having to go up to this door.
A lot of that is because the other countries do not have the regulation that we have. They do not have the frequency regulations that we have from the FCC, things like that, Mike. That make a difference with range and wattage and all that kind of stuff. So they're allowed to run it different things. What's that?
We're having a lightning storm. That's the issue that I was having out here. So I'm going to come out and see if it was still going on.
That is proof positive of the fact that yes, systems are just that sensitive. That is something that honestly, folks, if you're a voter, vote for anybody that's willing to upgrade the electrical grid in the United States. That is probably hands down one of our most vulnerable spots. It is something that, even right now with the existing electric grid, across the United States, if they were to hit that mark of all electric by 2030 or 2035, whatever it was,
That's not gonna happen.
Like we would melt the existing grid.
Absolutely. I
We
mean,
would
imagine
destroy
all
the grid.
the amount of electricity. Hey, yeah, I mean, just like when I was up at Fort Meade doing what I used to do up there, we used to have to call Baltimore Electric, whatever it's called in Baltimore,
Yeah.
and tell them that we're about to turn on our computer. That's no joke. The number one buyer of electricity in the entire state is this company place thing I used to work for. And
Yeah.
we would literally have to contact them and let them know, hey, we're about to turn on Titan or one of the Crays or even the D waves. We had 2 D waves that were there. So anybody can probably figure out where I used to work. But yeah, so, these things happen. And, when you look at our infrastructure here, this is one of the things, if you look at a corridor map or you pull up any of our electrical grid and our infrastructure, a person with a elementary school education can look at the map and go, okay, I need to hit it here, and I need to hit here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And they can figure it out. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out where to hit our electrical grid to get the types of results that they would also get if they did an EMP. I mean, you could do a surgical strike, have someone come in here with a 308 and shoot out a substation somewhere, and that's it. And no, I'm not giving out any ideas. I'm not saying
ain't no giving out ideas, brother. Like that happened.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
That has happened. Yeah.
That was all of 2 years ago that there were people around the country shooting at him, and there was a huge one that happened in Vegas.
That's correct.
That happened at the solar farm.
That's correct.
And they ended up cornering the guy like on a roof. I remember my buddy's wife was at the MGM. Yeah, my buddy's wife was at the MGM and called us and was like, "We're locked down right now." And it was because they caught the solar farm sniper, like the dude that was shooting at the solar farms and stuff like that.
And that guy, I think they even showed it where he pulled up in his truck or whatever it was, and you could see him just walk over and just do his thing. And you're like going, wow, it's that easy. I mean, anyone outside of our country watching that will go, oh, let's go to USA. We can do whatever we want. And that's still to this day, it's still a problem because we don't really respond. Other than military installations and very high critical installations, you're familiar with Switch, the company called Switch?
Yep.
Okay, so Switch, I've been to their facility in Vegas, and they have two level, whatever, I can't remember how their level systems were. We'll just say level 1 systems because they have OC-48s and an OC-128 in these buildings, and if anyone knows what that is. Go down to Vegas. You see how there's nothing, and then right there in Vegas, you see it. That all the data connections and all of the major electrical connections, because Vegas has the Hoover Dam.
Yep.
And so the dam creates that electricity for the West Coast. And then on top of that, because they have the electricity, then it also follows through that they have the switches. Yeah, I don't know if you can zoom in on Vegas, but you can see it's the only spider that's in Nevada. And if you look at the entire state of Nevada, that bottom section in Nevada. Now you're in New Mexico over there. Go to your left, that's Arizona, and then right there, right California. I seen you.
Right here.
There you go.
Yeah,
right there.
That's the one. The wedge.
Yeah, that's it. So Nevada is totally blank except for that area around Las Vegas. And if you look at the East Coast, you see all the spider webs on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But you'll see this imaginary line that seems to follow, not necessarily the Mississippi, but if you go from the Central Texas north, you'll see everything on the West Coast is very sparse. But the West Coast accounts for a large portion of the country's population. But if you go to the East Coast, it would take a major attack on the East Coast to bring down the systems, because all of those spider webs look like it would be an easier target, but in fact, it's just the opposite.
Yeah, it's things that can roll over and support each other and stuff like that, which are necessary for winter outages, that kind of stuff. And that was kind of the thing that I kept bringing up, and yes, folks, I know we went through some horrible things a couple years ago with our winter here in Texas, and it was the fact of, the power grid went down. Well, the fact is you're not going to get materials or power grid supplies, transformers, things like that will deal with 120, 130 degree desert heat and sub-freezing temperatures.
Right.
Like that.
And you think that these would be in climate-controlled facilities, and most of them are not. And it's normally not the actual equipment that ends up being the big problem. It's the outdoor stuff that happens.
Yes,
you have
exactly.
a power line hanging down, and it gets wet and
Precisely.
Gets too heavy and snaps.
Yeah, and it's the fact of,
and something as simple as that.
Yeah, well, and it's the fact of the Northeast, all these others that you see over here east of the Mississippi, they are all fortified for cold weather. They're fortified for that. If they had over 100 days of 100-degree weather like we did, they would have rolling brownouts and outages.
Yeah, they would. Well, California, went through that. Several of the cities had that going on.
Yeah, because
every situation
what
with
their
the rolling
grid is
brownouts,
made for it and made for that.
Yeah, and the thing about the rolling brownouts is that is the time that you test your facilities to see if they're going to hold up to an EMP attack or to a substation attack or something like that, because you're basically creating the exact same scenario that would happen. You're shutting down a substation, and you're hoping like hell that when you turn it back on that you don't blow a series of transformers, because the turn on is more important than turning off. Turning off a substation, no big deal. Turning it back on, big deal.
Yeah, it's like slamming the power off on a computer.
Yeah, and that's why they tell you that when your power goes out, go around and turn everything off.
Yeah.
And then when your power comes on, turn things on slowly. But people don't do that. We leave our air conditioners set to automatic. And of course, whenever the power goes out, if you're in cold area, it gets colder. If you're hot, it gets hotter. And so when your air conditioner turns back on, everybody's air conditioner comes back on, and everybody can recall that when your power's gone out, it comes on for a few seconds, and then bam, it's back out again. And you're wondering, what happened? It was just on. Well, what happened was you and all your neighbors had all your
appliances still on. Yeah.
I have all your stuff on, and that creates issues. So when they turned it all back on, you had all your stuff on. It created too much of a load on the system. And just like you blew a fuse. Well, they blew their fuse, and that's what happened. So so there's a little tidbit for you. Turn all your stuff off whenever that happens.
Well, and it's the fact of many of these things, Mike, are commonplace explainable. It doesn't take a hugely in-depth knowledge to understand the chain reaction of things, but for the average person, I don't think the average person understands truly beyond a Schoolhouse Rock concept what happens when they turn on a light switch. Yeah, and how that power is moved, how it gets from one location to another, how it moves down the line, how it's distributed, how Texas shares part of a grid with Mexico, and we help them, they help us,
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where if we would have went the way of Tesla, we wouldn't have this problem at all.
Well, we also wouldn't be paying for it, which is part of the issue. You can't just.
That's the problem.
You can't just give it to him.
That's why he died a very lonely man in a hotel room, because
you can't just give it to him, can you?
Yeah, if you could have made money on it, we would be driving DC cars. We would have driven electric cars long ago. Well, the electric car was out before the regular car was.
Well, even that fact, because there is the company, and I need to get them on, but they're right outside of Waco. They've been working with wireless transmission of power. We do have the fact that wireless power has been transmitted via laser back to Earth for the first time.
And also, you can pick up electrical power through Wi-Fi.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Yep.
No, you could use micro vibrators, things like that, on curtains in the air. Hang that inside of a building and just pick up the micro vibrations going through the air from all the Wi-Fi signals and help power small voltage devices like TVs, screens, that kind of stuff.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, we're not talking about, sexual devices for
No.
little.
No, but you can do that too. I mean,
Yeah,
hey, a couple years ago at CES, we laugh all the time because a couple years ago at CES, that was like the thing. And it was like, what is up with all the personal care devices? Like, and I mean like a whole section.
Yeah.
It was like, whoa. Like consumer electronics, yeah, but I'm pretty sure this show's in a couple weeks down the road in Vegas. Like that's the adult convention.
But that's a whole nother show. We have to get back on our subject now.
It's the idea of power, where power is distributed from, and what these things like the Chinese balloons, stuff like that, may have been poking and prodding at. I think it much more likely, especially since they were using our own internet to communicate, and that has been fully confirmed, that they used a U.S. internet provider.
And there's actually a reason for that, because downward communication is very difficult to block and to jam. So when they were transmitting straight down to the ground, you would have to have a growler, which is a highly modified F-18, below that plane. They knew that the U-2 spy plane would go up with the Dolphin back and the whole 9 yards, and it would probably start jamming signals. But it's difficult to jam direct signals aimed straight down at 802.11 or something along those lines, because they're not expecting that balloon to be transmitting at that frequency.
And once again, when you look at the size of that balloon, when you look at the size of the package on that thing, like it is a small satellite. It was the size of like 3 buses, like 3 city buses, something like that. So,
and you can see the shadow of, keep in mind the plane that you're looking at, it's a U-2. This U-2 is about 60 feet long, and that wingspan is about 100 and some odd feet. So you're looking at the shadow,
like a couple 100-foot balloon.
Yeah, it's about 200 feet across, and so those balloons are huge. They're not obviously that big when they're on the ground, but this particular type of balloon is not semi-rigid, but it's a lot more rigid than
it's different than your average weather balloon.
Definitely.
And that's just it. There are tons of these balloons available. You can go out and buy one for a few $100. One of them that was downed was actually one from a high school science class, apparently, that they had all pooled money together for. But that's how commonplace they are. They are not hard to launch. They are not hard to get a hold of. You don't need a license to do it.
That was a third trip. That was its third trip around the globe.
Yeah.
When it got shot down. Trip number 3.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people think these things go up. They're not like Mylar balloons that like an 18-inch party balloon goes up and gets up to, on average about 6,000 feet before those pop. But your average homemade weather balloon using a latex or rubber type material will go up into the 40s, 50s, and 60,000 feet and higher. A weather balloon will get up, or the balloons that are similar to weather balloons will get up to 100 to 120,000 feet before they burst. And then after they burst, if you go back to that right where you were with that red thing is hanging on, if you look at that package hanging off that balloon that's on the right there, that package there is set up in such a way that when the balloon bursts, a parachute will automatically open. At 120,000 feet, there's not much air pressure at all. So the parachute doesn't even open. So that thing will fall down till about 45, 60,000 feet before that parachute really starts to pop open. And then when it does, it just drifts down to the ground. The radio son will still, transmit on that frequency. Now, keep in mind that the frequency is not something that is going to be picked up by flight radar or anything like that. A lot of people think, well, they can track these balloons, well, they don't. They really don't.
But these balloons have a known quantitative as well.
Yeah.
Like they know what they look like whenever they blip. things like that. It's not like they are tracking every single one of them. No.
Yeah, they don't track any of them.
Yeah,
pretty much. Here's the reason why, and this is what I found out when I was doing the research on the UAPs, like the Navy and the 3 Navy videos. Edward Teets is the head of the weather facility at Armstrong, which is at Edwards Air Force Base. And in my talks to him, I asked him, I said, listen, where they upgraded the radar systems on all of these Navy vessels, on the Aegis cruisers and stuff like that. And when they upgraded these weather, a lot of the radar systems on these cruisers, you had Spire 1B that was upgraded. And once they upgraded that radar system, they were able to see these balloons. They couldn't see the balloons before. So when I was talking to Edward, that was what was reported back to me, is that, hey, I asked him point blank, I said, hey, are we able to see this now? And that was the case. And so, yeah, they can now see it. The Aegis cruiser could see it. The Navy cruisers could see it, or the Navy aircraft carrier and all that stuff. So totally different system now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, even talking about, once again, to bring it back in our last 10 minutes or so here, Mike, talking about the first balloon that happened, that wasn't really talked about, that was apparently scuttled.
Right.
That was off the coast of Hawaii. And now what the fishermen, I mean, they're just calling it debris, but what the fishermen brought in to the FBI in Alaska, which may well be the remains of said balloon. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Do you think that there will be any data on that package if recovered?
Yes. And part of that data will be, all I need to know is the type of transmitter that it had, and how to say this, because it was transmitting at a specific frequency and at a specific range, and because of that, that tells me exactly which type of balloon it was. I can even tell you where it was launched from, and possibly even give you the date as to when that occurred. So that balloon, when it went down last year, the balloon that no one knows about, that's the balloon that they may have found off the coast of Alaska. And that is something that I'm going to be very interested to know, because if we were the first ones to report that, then no one else had that information back then.
Yeah. And
all I need to know is what frequency did that balloon transmit on, because we picked up that frequency. I got to be very careful here. We picked up that specific frequency that it was transmitting on, and that's how I knew about it. When you received that phone call, when it came in live during your broadcast, and I told him that, yeah, I'm talking to Chris, and he thought, because we have a Chris on our team.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sitting there going, it's a different Chris. After that, we were able to track that balloon all the way down to the ground. So 1 hour, this happened 1 hour and 38 minutes after the balloon off the Carolinas was shot down. This balloon was 1,280 or so nautical miles north of Hawaii towards Alaska, but nowhere near Alaska, because Alaska's a lot further away. And that balloon went down to the water, and it still transmitted. But when, I don't know if a lot of people don't know this, as soon as you put a transmitter underwater, it doesn't transmit with a crap. I mean, it really is. You would think water would not be that big of a issue, but no, the water is terrible.
It's a thick medium. While it's great for carrying sound waves, specifically long frequency sound waves.
So it's 25 times more dense than air. So you got to have 25 times more power to transmit to get the same effect. And then
that's right.
For the medium, you have to transmit on ultra low frequencies.
That is
submarines and whales and whatever.
Exactly. Anything beyond the ELF band, which they have huge swath antennas under the ocean, like that's what they heard the compressive explosion from the submersible on was the ELF. system.
Yep, that's correct.
And yeah, like that carries forever. Anything else, they have to come to almost surface depth and send up a buoy to be able to get past the water.
They'll send up a balloon, believe it or not.
Yeah.
One of the things they do is they actually launch a balloon, and the balloon has this little extra wires hanging off of it. They also behind a submarine. A lot of people don't realize this, but behind a submarine, they will trail a 1,200-foot line that has all these antennas on it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's how they transmit too. So that it has to go beyond the cavitation of the actual propeller to get out of its wake, so to speak, and then it actually transmits ultra low frequencies and ELF frequencies and all that. So that's actually how they communicate. And that's how when they go deep, they're virtually cut off except for a very specific frequency range that they transmit on. And you can't transmit huge data packets on those frequency ranges. They can kind of do that now, but they couldn't do that 10 years ago. As short as 10 years ago, they couldn't do it. Now they can.
No, precisely. And it's amazing the technology that's out there. It's amazing how it continues to advance. And it's even more amazing to see that, it can fly on a passively powered system along with things. So we have about 5 minutes.
They have seawater batteries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They used to drop sonobuoys to track these submarines. And back when I was in, we used magnetic anomaly detection. So a MAD unit.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how we track submarines. Everybody's wondering, hey, we stopped dropping these $100,000 sonobuoys in the water to track these submarines from EC3s and whatnot. And then the platform kept getting higher and higher. First, you had ships that was actually tracking submarines, other submarines, ships tracking. Then you had planes tracking submarines, dropping buoys in the water. And the next thing you know, we're a lot higher than that now. We can track submarines just by using the Earth's magnetic field as a backdrop. And if anything goes through it, we need to have you on again to talk about USOs and how that relates to USOs and the whole science behind cavitation and how even cavitation and that idea and gravitational cavitation is basically the concept of Sarfati's work, things like that. So thanks for always coming on, man. It's always a pleasure talking with you. You are a wealth of knowledge on such things. And what I love doing on this show more than anything is, as most of my guests know, is not only having the conversation and entertaining the thought, but trying to demystify things, trying to remove some of the initial panic that people may have about a situation, and for them to understand that, like, no, you don't need to go empty a bank account right now. Yeah, and that's why I love your show, because as long as I've been doing your show, we've always tapped into that arena where we're going into the paranormal, we're going into UFOs, we're going I'll come on after someone that just did a Bigfoot session with you, and then here I am going into some UFO world or some all these different subject matters, and we get into some real high-tech stuff, but we have to laymanize as much as possible. But at the same time, that demystification brings it down to a level where everyone can sit there and go, you know what, this isn't really as hyped up, because we don't hype anything. We tell it like it is. I mean, some of these places out there that broadcast BS all the time, they may have bigger shows, bigger audiences and stuff like this, but I appreciate you not broadcasting crap.
It's the fact of, and I just had this conversation the other day, much like when we did the whole episode debunking Corey Good, and that part, it just the idea that, like, people use these concepts to usurp people, to usurp their sense of belonging, things like that, and it ends up becoming an abuse. And I do not want to be a part of that. I would much rather expose that for what it is, prima facie, and just say, hey, look, this is here. And if we don't pay attention to it, if people like myself don't vet our guests and don't make sure to say things like, hey, This is my educated opinion from what I know. Don't state things as facts.
Well, the cool thing about the magic of your show is that you know the subject. You're not just some puppet sitting there reading off some little script of questions and doing a cram session before you go on to do it. And that's one thing I appreciate. You and I have touched on some subjects that there were times I sit there and go, holy crap, he knows about this. So, so it's such a widely varied subject mix that you cover, because you don't just do one. There's some places that's all they do is one subject all the time. And after a while, you're like, man, you need to branch out just a little bit. You cover a lot of ground and you know a lot of stuff, and I'm very impressed with that.
Well, it is always a pleasure talking with you on and off air, my friend. You take care of yourself. Before we let you go here in this last minute, of course, let everybody know where they can go to keep up with the latest for Mike Turber and 5x5 News. I know you got a couple of great projects in the works. Where can they go to keep up with things? Where can they follow you? All that kind of good stuff.
Well, you can follow me on the usual places. Like YouTube is going to be pretty much the primary where I'm going to release some stuff. TikTok is coming on very strong. I'm going to start doing a lot more with TikTok, because it just seems to be a much more pleasant platform to deal with, and I don't have as much things guarding me. And also on X.com. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to start doing the lives will be coming back. We're going to have some wonderful guests. You will be a guest as well on my show, because I look towards you for that. Jim Rathman will be a guest on my show. Jack Sarfati will be a guest on my show. Mike Moran, a bunch of different people. We're going to bring on John Ramirez. So look towards that in the very near future. And also, I'll be bringing back the Las Vegas case, and we're going to go back through the whole case, because we're getting close to the 7-year mark.
Yeah.
And that'll be a big one. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, buddy.
Hey, man, absolutely. Once again, we definitely need to have you on to talk about that whenever the anniversary comes around. That is, of course, how we met. And that is a case that I will doggedly chase my entire career, because until people recognize that it is the greatest mass shooting that has ever happened, that everybody just forgot about within like a month or so, on purpose, then I'll stop ringing the bell about it. And that's what I ring the bell about, is the distraction that they used. So, Mike, thank you so much as always, bud. Take care of yourself. We'll talk to you soon. While you are online checking out all of the amazing work of Mike Turber and 5x5 News, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. Curious Realm is where you can find all of the episodes. That's where you can go to curiousrealm.com/videos and actively follow the YouTube of Mike Turber, all of our guests. You can find all of our stuff there. Make sure to stop on by if you're a Roku user. If you have a Roku device, make sure to stop on by and check out the all-new Roku app from Curious Realm. It has all of the episodes, all of our content, as well as all of my meditation and binaural beat music. If you're a targeted individual, that is some fantastic stuff that you can get there. Stay tuned through these commercial breaks real quick, folks. When we come back, we'll be welcoming Dr. Cecilia Cervantes and talking about NLP, Neurolinguistic Programming. The idea, and really, if you are a targeted individual, stay tuned, because NLP is something that can truly help you get out of that victim mentality, which, as we know, is what helps short circuit the circuitry that they're using. So stay tuned. We will talk with Dr. Cecilia Cervantes right after this, folks. The Curious Realm podcast is your source for the latest and greatest news and events in the world of the paranormal, esoteric, and forbidden knowledge. And there's no better way to spark the conversation than with items from the Curious Realm store. Choose from fan favorites like hoodies, mouse pads, coffee mugs, and more. Buy books and items from your favorite Curious Realm guests. Get your hands on the latest gear for paranormal investigations and experiments we discuss on the show. Open your web browser and stop on by the Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to buy the latest Curious Realm wear and out-of-this-world gifts for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this special segment of the Curious Realm here in studio. We have with us Dr. Cecilia Cervantes. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. I had the honor of being on your show, Changing Paradigms in Medicine, talking about binaural beats, healing frequencies, things like that. And you were actually a practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. That's what most of your practice is, correct?
Well, a lot of it is now. I am a medical doctor, and somewhere along the line, later in my career, I decided I needed to understand the mind better. And that's when I learned neurolinguistic programming. So I could see, well, what do people really mean by the words they use? Because people would tell me, well, I know what to do, I just don't do it. And I wonder, well, why wouldn't you do it if you knew what to do?
Yeah, well, and, that's an interesting point, because we as a society tend to stymie ourselves a lot, especially here in the West. We don't really have good. I guess the idea of good self-image here in the West has really finally taken root. And the idea of, oh, no, do you. Like, you do you. For years in Europe, other countries, there has been this idea of, no, you need a firm foundation of rest. You need a firm foundation of family time. Like if I had a baby in Europe, I would probably get a month off as a father to be with my kid. Not so much here in America. You're lucky to get a month off as a mother, much less a father. So we have already kind of this, I guess, reticent victim mentality in our heads. That we just kind of feed into linguistically on a daily basis.
Yes, it's true. The words we say tell us what we think about ourselves. We are describing ourselves with the words that we use. And neurolinguistic programming means, neuro means the nervous system. Linguistic is the words we use, our language. And programming is what those words cause us to do, our behaviors, our actions. So we're constantly programming ourselves to act in a certain way. And people will say things such as, oh, I'm just sick and tired of this and I'm sick and tired of that. And then they find themselves sick and tired. Well, what have they programmed themselves to do?
Yeah. And, it's interesting to see so many things, especially in the realm of science and medicine, coming to the point, literally coming to the culmination of manifestation almost. And the idea of, oh, no, like psychosomatically what you say is, when you constantly put yourself in the state of a victim, when you constantly talk about yourself in a negative way, because we have a lot of negative self-talk, like, oh, I hate it when I do this. You do have consent into that system. You don't have to keep doing it.
Exactly. You are, you create your own reality, all the time. And it's taking responsibility for that rather than thinking that you are a victim, because you're not. You create your world and how you see it and how you behave in it all the time. And so you have to be careful with your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. All those things program you. And everything that you see around you affects you in a certain way. You take it in, but you filter it through your own filters, your own values and your emotions. That is how you'll see the world. And so that's why two people will not see the same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because they all have different filters.
And we talk about this phenomenologically regularly on the show when it comes to paranormal experience, when it comes to two people who live in the same house, two people that maybe had the same event in their backyard, describe things differently. My brother and myself were both brought up in the same house by the same single mother. But because of the filters of the reality that's happened between then and now, those things impact us differently.
Exactly. So we're walking around in our own little world, and we also project on to others our feelings and our beliefs. So we'll project onto someone, and it's not, you could get angry at someone, but who are you really angry at? You're angry at yourself.
Yeah. And, as an anxiety sufferer, and well, a pretty depressive personality, honestly. It is something that I regularly come to with my wife, and it's no excuse. It's an ownership of, sweetheart, I'm sorry I yelled at you earlier. That was my own shame spiral. I was not angry at you for mentioning that. I was ashamed at myself for not having thought about doing it, and it's really more an accountability and understanding that if I don't back myself up and realize the fact that, no, I'm not angry at her for anything. I'm angry and sad at myself, and that's okay. It's an emotion. But I can't take it out in that way because when I take it out in that way, it kind of solidifies it as being that instead of what it is.
Right. Yeah, we'll just continue with the blame game and never really get to the root cause of what is troubling us. Why are we getting triggered and then reacting in that way? There's something there, and it has nothing to do with that person, but they have sort of chosen to be the person that you're projecting on.
Yeah.
And so then you have to kind of go down that path. It's like, what am I really upset about? Why do I get triggered when someone says a certain something to me?
Sure.
And it has to do with something either in your past or in your past life or in your ancestry. There's something that's being triggered, and it's coming up. And it's coming up because it wants to be dealt with. Your unconscious mind wants you to deal with this once and for all so that you can move on. Because unless and until you deal with it, you're going to continue to carry that with you. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And, we regularly talk on the show about the fact of our beautiful brains, the pattern systems that they are unfortunately wired really well for negative reinforcement. We learn a lot faster that fire is hot, don't touch it, than we do that fire will cook us food and keep us sustained. We learn more from that immediate danger point and from a negative reinforcement than we do from a positive reinforcement. Even the idea of a coach yelling at you, ask a wrestler, like when they are gripped in that embrace with somebody and wrestling on the ground, they hear their coach's voice yelling at them. Like, hey, do this. And they may not have even been thinking about doing that. But instinctively, because their coach has been yelling at them while that's happening, they hear their coach's voice giving them advice in the same way, and it may seem negative, but it's there to help with survival. These were all important things, not necessarily something negative. It's just the fact that now our society is different. We don't have that immediate threat of a saber tooth hunting us in the dark. So that negativity goes somewhere else and gets reinforced by other things and frequently by our own self-talk.
Exactly. And, we are wired for survival. So, but sometimes we are overreactive, right? Because we're used to living in that place.
Yeah.
And having that kind of adrenal response where we are lashing out because everything seems to be a threat to us. And we're living in a world where everything is fast. And you get information fast. And I think it's not helping us internally. because we're overreactive.
Sure.
You know, the things that we're watching on television or on the computer may be ramping us up also.
Yeah.
You know, and it could be something that is kind of intentional, shall we say?
Oh, sure. 100%. I mean, we got into that on your show a little bit. The idea of our eyes and brains see at about 30 frames per second, 24 to 30. That's why there's that beautiful frame quality of movies, things like that are shot between 24 and 30 frames per second. It seems like we are right there. But once you start doubling that, once you start getting into like 60 cycles per second, you know, that idea of 60 cycle hum, the flickering of a fluorescent light that's so fast that it makes your eyes tired. We start going into those natural hypnotic states 2, 3, 4 times. You're looking at a 120 hertz TV right there. That's 4 times faster than we can see. Our brains get tired faster. We get into an entrained, zombified state faster, you know, and while yes, our brains do need escape, that's a different kind of escape that isn't necessarily, and honestly, we were getting into this before the show, and I think it's a great time to bring it up, that I think that is one of a lot of people's catch-alls with neurolinguistic programming, is that they are afraid that it's a type of hypnosis that they don't have control over. You know, like I know quite a few people that will not go through a past life regression hypnosis despite things that have happened because they're afraid of what somebody might implant. Perfectly understandable when you're talking about that kind of hypnosis. If you have the wrong kind of hypnotist, absolutely, they can implant things in there. They can make you think all kinds of things that could even further harm you, you know, and bring you to a different point of victimization in your mind. But neurolinguistic programming is different than that hard put under hypnosis, correct?
Well, and most hypnosis is self-hypnosis.
Sure.
Now, when you are causing people to do things that harm themselves, that's kind of called brainwashing, right?
Yeah.
And brainwashing requires that, usually requires that there be torture involved. You break someone's will down to the bare bones. And that's brainwashing. It is that intense torture where you make people do things they would not normally want to do. Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, there is, that's definitely been done. That's been shown to, sadly enough, be horribly effective, Doctor. But that is not what neurolinguistic programming is. Neurolinguistic programming is much more, I guess the first time that I've, looking back on things that I recall ever even mentioning it to somebody, it was a boss of mine who I worked at a club at night that he owned running sound, and I worked with him at a country club during the day. And we had a night where the snow was thick, 2 of the bands canceled. And he was like, oh my God, like what are we even going to do for the night? And I just kind of flipped things around. And I was like, well, you know, that one band that's coming does have about 3 hours worth of stuff, and they're typically much more in the jam band realm. So like, we just start putting the word out to those people. And he's like, how do you always have some kind of positive spin? It's like, can't you just be negative for a day? Well, you know, I used to be very, very negative all the time. And I realized that it did nothing at all for my life, that it didn't help me on the daily, that it didn't, like, yeah, there's always some way that you can learn from a situation. There's always some kind of positive that you can glean out of it if you look hard enough. And it really is, I guess, getting to that personal point where you just revoke consent from the system of negativity, of constant negativity, and realize that, oh, no, like, I'm blocking most of myself here.
Yes. And negativity is really a low energy state. The negative emotions are in a lower state of energy. And so it literally kind of brings you down almost, right?
Yeah.
And you can feel it. You can feel it when you go into a place that is very negative. You feel almost the life energy being sucked out of you. or when you're around someone who's very negative, everything they say to you is negative, and you feel yourself kind of deflating,
Yeah.
And they're like a vampire taking your energy from you. So negativity doesn't serve you well, and it will take your energy, will zap you of energy. Those people are often tired, they're depressed, they don't feel good because they have no energy. Their energy body is down.
Yeah. And, even with the idea, once again, it's interesting to see how much medicine here in the last probably decade, and even spirituality has really come together, and the understanding of not just the whole patient, but the whole person. Yeah. And the idea that our spiritual basis, our self-fulfillment, those things like, I spent yesterday rewiring this studio right here behind me, like ripping things apart, installing new stuff. I don't really sell a whole lot of music. I love it. And this is like my space. This is, I guess, where my muses come. It's as close to a hearth as I have. So for me to do that is fulfilling to me. I would rather spend a day relabeling wires and rewiring this thing than I would probably out fishing or doing something like that, because it fills me up so much. And if that's selfish, okay. Like I will accept the selfishness because I need it.
It's not selfish, you're filling yourself up with energy. How can you give someone energy if you have none?
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to fill yourself up with energy. So this space is like your sanctuary space. It's where you come to be who you are and to, increase your energy and do what makes you happy and what you love. And that is so important, love and happiness, all the positive emotions give you energy. And in neurolinguistic programming, it is a series of technologies that we use to kind of figure out where are you in your life right now? How are you thinking about yourself and about the world around you? And how can you take those words you use and your emotions and your thoughts and your feelings and turn it around? And you had mentioned the reframe, what you were doing where you were reframing. People will look things negatively and you can reframe them and say, but on the other hand, this is the positive stuff that I see there. Yeah. And wouldn't that be better to go into that direction? And you always want to go into the direction of what you want. Too often we're going into the direction of what we don't want. We're going towards the negative because we think that if we think of the negative, we'll keep ourselves from going there. But we go a little towards it when we think of it.
Sure. And with that, I think also comes the idea of separating want and need. There's two words that I think we really, really overuse in our society, and that is love and hate. Love can make you habitualize to something really, really fast. There's an old song by KRS-One, one of the first hip hop songs that ever made me perk my ears up because it had a message. And the song was called Love's Gonna Get You. And it's like, so you think you love that car. You think you love that gold chain. You think you're in love with that woman over there. Probably not. You need to be in love with yourself. Once you're fulfilled in yourself, you'd be surprised what you actively attract. You'd be surprised how maybe you'll find a relationship that is a little bit healthier than you or for you, because you're actively not looking for somebody to complete you, which is a huge onus to put on somebody. When you use that Jerry Maguire phrase, "you complete me," like, wow, that is a huge responsibility that you've just thrust on somebody, that like, without you, I am not a complete human being. That's a lot of weight. That's a lot of weight.
Yes.
And we don't realize that. Even the idea of falling in love, the idea that love is an accident instead of an action, instead of a purposeful action. It's interesting how our society has pre-programmed us to these things. And we wonder why we have relationship issues. We wonder why we have issues fulfilling ourselves and quite literally our destinies as far as what we're supposed to be doing.
If we're an empty vessel without energy, how can we fall in love with someone else? There's no energy there for that. And we do have to fall in love with ourselves first and be kind to ourselves and nourish ourselves like you would nourish a plant or a child.
Mm-hmm.
You give them good food so that they grow well and give them positive energy, right?
Yeah.
So inside yourself, you have to have that energy first in order to find it elsewhere.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's a search that is, it's a fool's search. You're not going to find it in someone else unless you have it in yourself.
Well, and, probably one of the biggest things that I have held with my son, who you just met outside, coming up on 7 years old, is the fact that I am here to raise the most independent person as fast as I can. I'm a loving father. I spend time with my son, but I have never spoken to my son as though he is a child. I've always explained things to him to the depth to which I would explain them to an adult, no different. And it's kind of nice to know that, like, when we sleep in on a Sunday, that he knows how to get his own breakfast at 6 years old. That we come out and he's got his cartoons on, or he's busy building something on his tablet, and he is occupied in his world and completely and utterly fulfilled. He may want to come share something with us during the day, but he's not like many of the kindergarten first graders that I worked with many years ago that are lost when mom walks out of the door, and are unable to do for themselves emotionally, unable to really Rubik's Cube the world around them and make sense of things. And it can be hard, and we tend to carry those traumas forward in life. And even the idea of the studies that have been done recently where traumas are carried epigenetically. Mm-hmm. It was a beautiful study done here in the last year or so with Vietnam veterans and their children, showing the fact that the epigenetic changes that happened to them when they were POWs and out in the field carried on to their children. So the idea of your negative self-talk carrying on to the next generation, whether you say it out loud or not, that's deep. That goes a long way. What can people do to start recognizing these negative patterns? Because I think that's where it really starts, is learning to recognize it prima facie when it happens, and just, like I was saying earlier, just kind of calling it out and saying, like, nope, sorry. This is what this is, and I'm very sorry I just let that happen to you.
I like to tell my clients especially that they need to start stalking themselves. And that's an idea that I got from Carlos Castaneda.
That's a beautiful term.
Yeah, start stalking yourself. Listen to what you're saying. And when that negative word or thought comes out, pick it apart and turn it around. Delete it. Delete it, because, we're like computers, right? And when we don't like something on our computer, we delete it, right? We've got to delete that and then put in something positive. Yeah. And start to listen to what you're saying about yourself and about others. Listen to your words, because your words, they do manifest. They can cause you to manifest things in your life that you don't want. And you don't even realize you're doing it, but you have to start realizing it, because you are creating your reality with the words that you're using. You need to listen to it, write it down, and say, why am I saying this to myself? I'm programming myself to be negative.
Yeah.
And I'm self-deprecating, I hear some people say, I'm not that smart like you are. It's like, well, why? When did you come up with that? When did you start believing that?
Well, and what's the measure of smart?
Yes, exactly.
That's like saying, I'm not normal like you are. Well, let's get the baseline of normal real quick, because I'm pretty sure most psychologists have that somewhat wrong. Yeah. It's this idea that we are beholden to somebody else's idea of who we are and what we are and why we are, and it leads to so many things in our society that are quite literally just, I'm sorry, folks, I'll look right at the camera. They are vapidly sucking away the energy of our society. Like the one thing I say to people regularly, whenever the political discussions start, whenever the religious discussions start, whenever the phobic whatever conversations start, is I'm pretty sure this country was started by a bunch of people that were so tired of somebody else telling them what they needed to be, that they were like, I don't care if I have to go 6 months across the ocean and maybe not live. I'm not living in this anymore. I'm out.
Exactly. We have to remember that. Yeah.
And we have to be willing to be crazy enough on the block to be like, I revoke my consent to this concocted system, because it's just gone. It's gone, and the idea of having to be beholden to somebody else's idea of you or your life or what happens behind the closed doors of your home, we have let it utterly rent the spare space in our heads.
Absolutely. And there goes freedom out the door.
Yeah.
There it
quite
goes.
Literally.
And
quite literally.
It's interesting because my history is that my family came here from Cuba.
Oh, wow.
Way back when you were, in the beginning of the revolution there. And we left with the clothes on our back, literally, with the clothes on our back. You have to, for freedom, what are you going to do for freedom? Are you going to leave everything behind? Are you going to let it all go?
Yeah.
To have that freedom? And guess what? We still need to be thinking that way right now, because we're not totally free.
No.
Are we?
No, absolutely not. And that's just it. You grew up with a system of oppression where there was a chiva on the corner telling other people what you were doing and things like that. And this is a reality that, unfortunately, we have kind of lost place of in this country. You hear a lot of people, unfortunately, really kind of badmouth this country. And it is one of those like, wow, I'd like to see you try to make that decision in about 8 other countries I could ring off, Cuba being one of them. I'd like to see you wake up and be able to make that decision in Cuba. I'd like to see you be able to wake up in the Ukraine and make that decision today. There are still many places in the world that we are looked up to as that beautiful place of decision, of freedom, of personal decision. But for some reason, we are locking away our personal decision of being happy and being able to be happy and be fulfilled in what we have.
It starts with you. Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be free? And do you want to know when someone is impinging on that? You have to have that total awareness. Yeah. You have to not just listen to yourself, but listen to what others are saying to you. What is the television telling you? We are being programmed in many ways.
Absolutely.
And yes, this country has been the jewel in the crown, but there are those out there who are wanting you to go in a different direction. The only one that can keep you free is yourself.
That's right.
You have to be willing to let go of certain things for that freedom. And you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to let go of?
Yeah.
Am I willing to walk away from a certain job that makes me miserable? Okay? Am I willing to walk away from a relationship that just keeps me in chains?
Yeah.
Because you have the option to leave.
That's right.
You have the option to make that decision.
Yeah.
You have to be willing.
Well, and it is that consent into a system, and it's a system that we've, once again, societally been programmed in so many ways. You know, even the gender roles of man versus woman, you know, it's something that I've tried to impress upon my wife so many times, is that, you know, I'm not saying that the pressure is actively there of me as breadwinner, but from society's point of view, and from just about anybody's point of view of, you know, my parents' age or older, that would be the question is, oh, what, Chris can't provide? It wouldn't be a teamwork situation like, hey, the two of them together are having some problems. Oh, no. The programming is, oh, what, Chris can't provide? So there is a lot of programming that's been pre-done for us in society. You know, even whenever you look at that psychological expectation of Cinderella, and I want to know when it became okay for guys to just come and kiss you in your sleep. When is that what you're supposed to be aspiring to? Is the guy who comes and shows his love for you in your sleep? You know, and that's his first communication of tenderness to you. Like there are all of these subtle things that, yes, are absolutely there programming wise that kind of start us off on an uneven keel to begin with.
Really creepy.
That we kind of have to break, and you don't really think about it, but it's in there.
It's in there.
You know, and that's just it. It's not like a huge undertaking of we're going to have multiple sessions of hard hypnosis and give you some trigger phrases and give you some hand motions that, you know, whenever you feel this way subconsciously, you're going to wiggle your toe and that will help you relieve the stress. Neurolinguistic programming is learning to understand these things that are put upon you and being able to unweave them in real time. Exactly.
It's because, you know, you have your conscious mind, which is about 5% of you. And then the unconscious mind is the other 95%. And you want to, in between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, there's this critical wedge. And if we remove that critical wedge, you know, we can understand ourselves a little more wholly. What is in our unconscious? What are our beliefs? What are our values? A lot of these things are very unconscious to us.
Sure.
And with neurolinguistic programming, you learn about yourself. What do you really believe? And how do those beliefs, how do they help you? And how do they obstruct you? How do they keep you back? Because there are a lot of negatively held beliefs that hold us back. And some of them could be ancestrally carried through the generations, or they could come from even a past life.
Sure.
And it comes forward with you. At some point, your job is to let it go, to discover what is the root cause and can I let this go? What have I learned from this? Because everything negative is there to teach you something.
Yes, absolutely. Even, you know, earlier you were talking about the rapidity with which society happens. And that is utterly shown in behaviors like panic. I myself am seeing somebody right now for slight panic disorder. And it's basically misplaced anxiety. Our anxiety is worries about things in the future, like, oh, it's going to be dark in a little while. I should probably get a fire ready. You know, once again, it takes us back to those things that as cavemen we worried about in preparation. You know, do I have food for the night? I need to go out and gather food. You know, things like that helped us. Our anxieties were good things. But when they happen so fast, when they happen to a point that it rocks your world, and it suddenly becomes panic. So many people are living in that state. And I surprisingly found myself in that state in the post-COVID world. I was not that way. I had some anxiety, some social anxiety issues, but not to the point where it was like yo, wait a minute, this is a panic attack. And it really does bring a lot of that immediacy to mind. And that was a lot of what my therapist told me, was the idea of being able to recognize that and being able to realize that, no, your quickened heart rate, your sweating, everything else is a normal biological function of anxiety. Don't let that worry you. Don't let that lead you down a road of panic because suddenly you've got a rapid heartbeat and you don't know why. Start tracing back what you're anxious about and figure that out, and the panic will subside, and it's interesting to be able to do that. And it definitely takes practice. What can people do to start kind of unraveling some of that light programming that's already been done by society and start to really, I guess, expose that empathetic nerve that's necessary with yourself, not just with the world around you, for NLP to work.
Right. Well, you want to recognize, well, what is going on right now? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? And where's that coming from? There's some fear in there, fear of something that gets started.
Yeah.
And there's usually a trigger that sets it off. Something sets it off. Maybe it's something you've seen, something you've heard, a certain person, or a photograph of something. There's something that sets it off. And recognizing that that's the trigger. And maybe perhaps, if you can, journal about it. And then get professional help, because this is a runaway thing.
Yeah.
And you may not be able to control it so easily.
Well, and hey, if you were pushing a car down the side of the highway and somebody came up along and said, hey, man, you need some help pushing that car? Would you be like, nah, I got this, and just keep pushing? Or would you be, hey, thank you so much, I appreciate the help? That's part of the NLP too, right. is realizing that it's okay to need help, that it's okay to need an assist every once in a while, or even somebody to help you, view the forest and the trees instead of the overwhelming view of trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Exactly. Get professional help. This is something that they do on a regular basis, and they can help you with it. And there's a variety of techniques that can help with that. In NLP, we do several techniques, and we also do timeline therapy to take care of that movie that sort of gets started and then just runs away and sets you down that track.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because in college, I had a Spanish professor. Hello, Mrs. Rosensteel. I doubt seriously that you were listening. But she used to tell me all the time, Chris, like, you can tutor people in Spanish and bring them from like a D to a B, but you can't get yourself to class. Why not? Mm-hmm. Like, you come in, you take the quizzes, you take the tests, you make perfect grades on them, but you just can't get to class 3 days a week. Why not? And I explained to her at that point the ever-widening Coriolis effect of my thought, and how the thought of what if I had done this, or what if I did this, just sent me down an ever-widening path of thought that led me to a point of inaction regularly, to a point where I'd look and half the day would be gone. It'd be like, oh crap, like I totally missed class. I got so in my head with thought and with inaction of thought. And that was something that I had to recognize in myself, because we get caught in that thought process. We get caught in that movie that's playing out in our head. And even the idea of having the conversation on the way to the table, playing a conversation out while you're in the car, like, stop, people, for your own sake, stop. That conversation has not happened. You are putting thoughts and emotions into somebody's head. Like literally before you've ever gotten there, you have started laying the firm foundation of wall and brick and mortar before you've ever come to the table of conversation, and we do that so often with that self-playing movie. In our last few minutes with you here, where can people go? Where can they come to you for help? How can they start to recognize these things in themselves or in a family member that maybe they need help with, Doctor?
Well, they can contact me through my website, myquantumheal.com, and request a free 20-minute consult. So we can figure out, well, what is it that you're wanting to work on? What's coming up for you? And can we get to the root cause? And we can. Yeah. If we go down that road, we can certainly get to the root cause of it and figure out what is it that's keeping you blocked in your life. And it always starts in your head. It's in your mind. And then there's that mind-body connection, so that then you'll start to have symptoms in your body. That is the mind-body connection. That is real. But it all starts here. And we need to figure out what's going on here. What is it that you believe about yourself? And what are those emotions that are running around and maybe causing you to go into an overwhelm where you're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to be a deer in the headlights. Because you're wanting to go in 20 directions at once, and that's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. No, precisely. And not only that, but regaining that empathetic nerve that we all need, understanding that we're all a raw nerve in a certain way, and that we're filtering people's comments, actions, everything through a lens of experience in our life, that we don't have to do that. We don't have to put it all through that tiny myopic lens. No. So
no, if we can get to a place where we are neutral, that's going to be the best place for you. Learning how to do that through meditation or mindfulness activities, or just realizing I can let that go because I don't really need it. Yeah. Well, and that was kind of my thing I was saying earlier about hate. I can understand hating the brick that you just stubbed your toe on. Hating an action that maybe you like. I hate it when I do this, but to hate a person, especially somebody that you've never met, that you've never shared common space with, like, what a vapid waste of energy. Yeah.
Like, your energy could be used for such more creative things and for doing good things in the world instead of just manifesting negativity for the sake of negativity.
Right. And, that hate comes from somewhere.
It does. It does.
What do you really hate about yourself that you are seeing in someone else? Because that's your projection.
Yeah.
And that is serving to let you know it's there and something you need to deal with.
Yeah, 100%. I want to thank you so much for coming on today, for coming into the studio. I'm so glad that we got together. I need to have you on again and again, because when it comes to, especially these books on the shelf here, these are all experiencers. These are all people that have had that moment of ontologic shock in their life where in a single moment, everything that they knew to be changed.
Yeah.
And they didn't know what to do. And things like NLP can help you with that. Things like NLP can help you regain a point of structure where dismay or disarray may have come into your life. So thank you so much for the time today, Doctor. I greatly appreciate it. It's more than a pleasure. While you are online checking out all of the amazing work of Dr. Cecilia, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can find all the episodes. That's where you can like, follow, subscribe. That is where you can get all the books from our guests, all of their classes. You can also download the all-new Curious Realm Roku app. If you're a Roku device user, download the app. You'll get all the episodes, all our content, as well as all of our binaural beat and meditation music. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Remember, open hearts and open minds are what make the conversation, and without the conversation, we do not move forward as humanity. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Stay curious. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Curious Realm. Stay tuned for more guests, forbidden topics, and hidden truths. Follow us on social media by searching Curious Realm. To download the official Curious Realm app and view the Knowledge Vault, or become a sponsor of Curious Realm, visit our website at curiousrealm.com. Curious Realm is available on your favorite podcast and video services, as well as KPNL Radio, APR TV, and the Curious Realm app for Roku devices. Curious Realm is a proud member of the Ground Zero Media and Aftermath Media family of podcasts. For more great shows and members-only content, visit groundzeromedia.org and aftermathmedia.com today. Thanks for listening. Stay curious, and remember, the other side is always watching.